And a man described as one of the government's most conservative members is the Attorney-General Robert Clark. I spoke to him at Parliament House. Well, Robert Clark, welcome to 7:30 Victoria.
Thank you, Josie.
Do you stand by your comments that Victoria's Charter of Human Rights is dangerous?
I think the Charter Act raises a number of concerns, whether it takes responsibility out of the hands of the community through Parliament, therefore does it undermine parliamentary democracy and give broad and sweeping powers into the hands of the judiciary? Is it working effectively to provide practical rights and remedies for Victorians? These were very serious concerns that we raised when the legislation was debated, and they still need to be resolved.
There's a parliamentary review currently underway. Would your preference be to abolish the Charter altogether?
Look, we want to see what the outcome of the review is, and we've called this review to be conducted in an open and transparent and democratic way. We've given it to the Parliamentary Committee. Any government can handpick an inquiry with people to produce a particular result. We said no, the best way to go forward with this is to entrust this to a parliamentary inquiry with a full, open investigation, get all the evidence on the table, and then everybody will be in a position to assess that evidence and form a conclusion about what the best way forward is for the Charter Act.
So you haven't made up your mind?
No, there's no preconceived outcomes on this.
Do you accept that it's had any concrete benefits?
I don't think anybody in Victoria or Australia need fear scrutiny of legislation that comes before the Parliament against international benchmarks, because Victoria and Australia have got a pretty good record when it comes to upholding internationally recognised human rights. But the separate question is the Charter Act working effectively to provide individual citizens with remedies if they go to a government department and have concerns about the services that they're receiving?
You don't accept that there have been positive benefits to come from the Charter?
There are a range of claims. What we and what the community need to be better informed about is what are the benefits and what have been the costs, because of course this does come at a cost. The Victorian Government solicitor said a few years ago that the bulk of 30 extra legal staff that he'd put on his team was due to requirements of the Charter legislation. That's a significant cost to taxpayers and the community. Is the Charter Act the best way to secure the sorts of services out of government that the community is looking for?
In opposition, you are highly critical of moves to limit the Auditor-General and Ombudsman's powers, yet since being in government you're actually seeking to limit the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner's powers. Do you see a conflict in that position?
What we're doing in relation to the Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission is restoring normal corporate governance rules that apply generally in Australia in both the public and private sector. At the moment, there is excessive power concentrated in the hands of one position, namely the Commissioner, that chairs the board and is also the principal executive position in the organisation. In most entities in Australia, there's a separation between the board and the principal executive position, and that's what we're restoring with the Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission.
You're also limiting her powers to launch investigations, though. What benefit does that serve?
What we are doing there is saying that if the Commissioner wants to use coercive powers, those powers need to be authorised by an independent body through VCAT. For example, Victoria Police, if they want to execute a search warrant, they need to go to a magistrate and get that search warrant issued. If the Commissioner believes that someone's holding documents that are relevant to one of their investigations, they will need to go to VCAT to get authorisation to require those documents to be produced. Similarly, if they want to exercise coercive powers to question someone, they will need to satisfy VCAT that there's good cause to do it.
Are you deliberately targeting some of Labor's key legal reforms?
What we're doing here is restoring balance and common sense to equal opportunity legislation. Labor gave excessive powers to the Commission, powers, as I've said, that Victoria Police, for example, wouldn't be able to exercise, of which many people would rightly be concerned on civil liberties ground if those powers were to be vested in Victoria Police. So we are saying the Commission can conduct investigation of systemic discrimination where an investigation is the best way forward, but coercive powers need to be subject to checks and balances.
You're considered one of the most right-wing Conservative members of this government. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Others can form their views about what different ministers stand for, what their backgrounds are, but as a minister of the government, I'm upholding and implementing the policies of the government, and we went into the election with some specific commitments to restore balance and common sense to equal opportunity legislation, and that's the legislation that's currently before the Parliament.
One Labor MP has told Parliament he believes you're driving 60 to 80% of this government's legislation. Is that in the ballpark? Well,
the Attorney-General's portfolio traditionally does generate a large amount of legislation, and we've got a lot of legislation on our program, both in respect of civil law and in respect of criminal law. We're restoring tougher and more effective sentencing in Victoria, getting rid of suspended sentences for all offences, introducing baseline minimum sentences for serious crimes, introducing statutory minimum sentences for gross violence offences. And on the civil side, we're removing some of the red tape about civil procedure. We're introducing commercial arbitration legislation. So there is a heavy legislative workload in the Attorney-General's portfolio.
Robert Clark, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Josie.